So our topic for today is about adding vectors algebraically. So let's try this problem. The lengths of a vector are given by A is equal to 25 units, B is equal to 50 units, C is equal to 70 units, and D is equal to 80 units. And their angles are shown in the figure. For letter A, find the component of each vector, and for letter B, find the magnitude of the resultant, and for letter C, find the magnitude and direction of the sum A plus B minus C. So, for letter A, kukunin daw natin yung component ng bawat vector. So, let's start. For vector A, AX is equal to A cosine theta, and then substitute the given. That is 25 units cosine 30 degrees. Plug in the values to your calculators. 25 cosine 30 is equal to 21.65. So AX is equal to 21.65 units. For AY, AY is equal to A sine theta. Substitute the given, that is 25 units sine 30 degrees. Plug in the values to your calculator. We have 25 sine 30 degrees. So that is equal to 12.5. So AY is equal to 12.50 units. So AY and AX is positive. Why? It's because vector A is plotted on the first quadrant where X and Y component is positive. Next, for vector B, Bx is equal to B cosine theta. Again, substitute the value. We have negative 50 units cosine 19 degrees. Negative si 50 units. Why? Because vector B is plotted on the second quadrant where X component is negative and Y component is positive. So plug in the values to your calculators. That is negative 50 cosine 19. That is equal to negative 47.28. So Bx is equal to negative 47.28 units. For By, By is equal to B sine theta. Substitute the values. That is equal to 50 units sine 19 degrees. Plug in the values. We have 50 units sine 19 degrees. Dy is equal to 16.28 units. Okay, for vector C, Cx is equal to C cosine theta. Substitute the values. We have negative 70 units cosine 52 degrees. Again, Cx is negative since C vector is plotted on the third quadrant where X is negative. Okay, now plug in the values to your calculator. We have negative 70 cosine 52 degrees, that is equal to negative 43.10. So Cx is equal to negative 43.10 units. So for Cy, we have C sine theta. Substitute the value, that is equal to negative 70 units sine 52 degrees. Again, Cy is negative since, again, vector C is plotted in the third quadrant where Y component is negative. So Cy is negative. Plug in the values to your calculator. That is 70 units sine 52. That is equal to negative 55.16 units. So Cy is equal to negative 55.16 units. For vector D, dx is equal to d cosine theta. And then substitute the values. We have 80 units cosine 27. So positive si 80 since vector D is plotted in the fourth quadrant at ang x component sa fourth quadrant is positive. Plug in the values to your calculator. That is 80 cosine 27. That is equal to 71.28 units. Okay, for dy, dy is equal to d sine theta. Substitute the values. We have negative 80 units sine 27. Bakit negative si 80? It's because nasa fourth quadrant kasi vector D at ang y component sa fourth quadrant is negative. Okay? So plug in the values to your calculator. We have negative 80 sine 27 degrees. That is equal to negative 36.32 units. So dy is equal to negative 36.32 units. Next, for problem B, find the magnitude of the resultant. Ngayong nakuha na po natin yung components ng A, B, C, and D. Ngayon, para makuha natin yung kanyang magnitude, we need to get the sum of all the vectors along the x-axis and the sum of all the vectors along the y-axis. So that is Rx is equal to Vx. So Rx is equal to Ax plus Bx plus Cx plus Dx. And then substitute the values. Rx is equal to 21.65 plus negative 47.28 for Bx plus negative 43.10 for Cx and plus 71.78 for Dx. Plug in the values to your calculators. That is 21.65 minus 47.28 minus 43.10 plus 71.28. So Rx is equal to 2.55. Okay? Next, kunin naman natin yung sum along the y-axis. That is Ry is equal to summation of vectors along y-axis. That is Ay plus dy plus cy plus dy. Okay? Plug in the values. We have 12.50 for Ay plus 16.28 for By plus negative 55.16 for Cy plus negative 36.32 for Dy. Okay? Input natin sa calculator, 12.50 plus 16.28 minus 55.16 minus 36.32. So Ry is equal to negative 62.70 units. Okay? Ngayong nakuha na po natin yung kanyang Rx and Ry, we can now solve for the magnitude of the vectors by using Pythagorean theorem. That is, R is equal to square root of Rx squared plus Ry squared. Plugging the values, we have R is equal to square root of 2.55 squared plus negative 62.70 squared. So calculate natin, 2.55 squared plus negative 62.70 squared. That is equal to 62.75. So the resultant is equal to 62.75 units. For letter C, find the magnitude and direction of the sum A plus B and C. So same process, we need to calculate all the x component along the x-axis, including Ax, Bx, and Cx. Hindi na po natin isasali si Dx. So that is Ax plus Bx minus Cx. Plug in the values, we have 21.65 for Ax plus negative 47.28 for Bx minus negative 43.10 for Cx. So 21.65 minus 47.28 minus negative 43.10 Rx is equal to 17.45 units. Now let's calculate for Ry. Ry is equal to summation of all the vectors along y component. So that is Ay plus By minus Cy. Plug in the values, you have 12.50. You have 12.50 for Ay plus 16.28 for By minus negative 55.164 CY. Plug in the values to your calculators. We have 12.50 plus 16.28 minus negative 55.16. Negative 55.16. So that is equal to 83.94. So Ry is equal to 83.94 units. Ngayong na-compute na po natin yung kanyang Rx and Ry for A plus B minus C, we can now calculate the magnitude by using Pythagorean theorem. That is R is equal to the square root of Rx squared plus Ry squared. And then substitute, we have the square root of 17.47 squared plus 83.94 squared. So plugging the values to your calculator, we have 17.47 squared plus 83.94 squared. So that is equal to 85.74. So R is equal to 85.74 units. Okay? Sa letter C, nahanap din yung direction ng sum ng A, B, and C, which is yung 85.74. So, paano po natin kukunin yon? So, kukunin natin yon gamit yung inverse tangent function. So, theta is equal to inverse tangent, opposite over adjacent. Plug in the values. We have inverse tangent 83.94 divided by 17.47. That is inverse tangent 83.94 over 17.47. So that is equal to 78.24 degrees. So R is theta is equal to 78.24 degrees.